Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.
Hi, and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community. I'm Lori Baker. With me today is Mary Kate Karr-Petras, Associate Editor, and we are talking about the silver and gold gift bags that are in the Best Christmas Quilts 2014 issue. Welcome, Mary Kate, and I'm anxious to go through this with you and share what we can do.
Well, I've made what I like to call reusable gift bags. I've made them a few different ways. I like using fabric, and I like using things that people could conceivably use again to regift. Sometimes people don't want to let them go though because they like the bags so much that we made for them. But the idea for this is that it's a very quick bag that you can make. That you have to leave for the party in 2 hours, and you still need to put on your makeup.
This is doable.
Absolutely doable. If I can do it, you can do it. So, and we have a couple of examples here, and we'll get to that later. But this started for me with, I was thinking about how I wanted to do this. And so when it came time to finally cut my fabric, the first place I went was my kitchen. And I grabbed one of my bowls. As you can see, it's gotten a lot of use. There's a lot of scuffing going on in there. But it was just the right size, I figured, for the bottom. I wanted to make a round bottom bag this time. Usually I've done squared off bags. So I wanted to do a round bottom bag. And what I did is I just laid it down on my fabric, a single layer, and I just cut around it with my rotary cutter because it's my bowl. I can do that if I want to.
But if you were worried about scratching your bowl, you could mark around it with a fabric marker.
Right, and then cut it out with your scissors or a rotary cutter. But I wasn't that careful. I didn't care. So that was the first thing I did. The next thing I did, though, is I measured it to figure out, I knew there would be math, there would be geometry involved to figure out exactly how long to cut the rest of my strips. So this is something you can do if you're comfortable with pi, P-I,
yes.
3.14. What I did is I decided to use that circumference as my cut size. I could have used that as my finished size and then cut a quarter-inch seam allowance around that, but I decided to, when I just cut that, that was going to be my raw edge, and so then I needed to figure out from there how long to cut my strips. I subtracted a ½ inch for quarter-inch seam allowance each side. Then I took that measurement, multiplied it by pi, added back my seam allowance, and it told me that I needed to cut my strips 17 and 3/8 inches long.
And that's going to vary depending on the size of the bowl in your cabinet.
Right. And if you are using the pattern, as Lori said, we published this in Best Christmas Quilts 2014. We do supply you with a round template that you can use so you don't have to do the math. But, I like to equip people with, the DIY aspects.
Absolutely.
So that's that. So the first thing, so then I chose my fabric. And I wanted to, if you can see, we'll take a look here really quick. I wanted to have a finished edge on the inside. This little seam notwithstanding, I wanted to have a finished edge so that you wouldn't be looking at the wrong side of the fabric as you were looking at the gift bag.
Right.
So I decided to do this folded top, as I'm calling it. So, and based on how tall I wanted to make my bag, I cut a strip, the length needed, which is 17 3/8, and then I cut it 5½ inches wide. I took that strip, I folded it in half lengthwise, wrong sides together, and then I top stitched 1 inch from the fold, turned it around, and then I stitched 1 inch from the raw edge. And that gave me a channel that's 3/4 of an inch wide, which is just perfect to fit a 5/8 inch ribbon. And there's that width comes in a variety of textures and colors, and so it's something that's very standard to find at a big box fabric store or craft store. So a lot of options there. So that was the first thing I did. The next step is to prepare the bag top for the ribbon. I call this is the channel. Again, I wanted this to be quick. I didn't want to get too technical. So all I did was take a pair of scissors, figure out which is the right side and the wrong side of your bag top. Right. Just through the top layer and just inside the stitches, I snipped about 1/4 of an inch in. Maybe a thread more.
A smidge more.
Smidge more, maybe. Just eyeball it. Doesn't need to be scientific. Just like that. And then just fold that in ever so gently. Just work that into the seam allowance there, or what will be the channel rather.
Right.
You know, you could apply some fray check if you wanted to. Gigi suggested maybe buttonhole stitching at the top and bottom as a way to
right.
secure it. Again, these aren't bags that I think will be getting a lot of daily use. If I thought they would be getting a lot of daily use, perhaps I would do that. These are gift bags, so I think you can get by without it, but it's, you know, it's up to you. So, and I did the same thing at this end. So now we have both ends snipped and ready. The next thing is to figure out how tall you want your bag to be. I wanted my bag to finish at about 8 inches tall. So this bag top is going to finish at 2 inches. So I cut what I call the bag body at 6.5 inches. And then you just lay your bag top on top of your bag body, right sides together, raw edges aligned, as we like to say, and then you just join them along this seam. That's what we're going to do right now.
With a 1/4 inch seam?
Yes, with a 1/4 inch seam. So let's just do that. So we've joined the bag top to the bag body, and we've pressed the seam toward the bag body. As you can see, it got a little warped as I was sewing. Of course, I was going fast, but right. You know, this is not a quilt.
and it's fine.
It's fine. It's dimensional. It's not the end of the world. If it bothers you, by all means, pin or, you know, control it better. But I don't worry about it too much. So, and then you're going to put your right sides together, and you want to line up those seam lines. You just want to make sure that they're pretty much aligned and, you know, everything fits nicely. And then you might want to just sort of indicate to yourself where that fold is, because when we join along this edge, we want to make sure we don't catch that fold.
So you still have the channel opening to put the ribbon in.
Science. It's amazing. So then you might want to start and stop up here, little back stitch, just to give it a little extra security. We're not going to do that right now. Okay, so we have joined along that long side seam. As you can see, I managed not to catch the fold in my seam, and I press the seam open. As we discussed, though, before you do that, maybe you'd want to zigzag, you wouldn't want to zigzag them together per se, but maybe, you know, do a zigzag or, I don't know, serge them or finish them.
Something to finish the edge.
Yeah, because, you know, they might get a little fray-y.
Right.
That's a new word, fray-y.
Yes.
And just to give it a little bit of a nicer edge. It's up to you, a nicer touch rather. Now we are going to join our bag bottom, which we already cut out. What I do is I fold it, I just finger press it in half one direction, and then I finger press it in half the other direction, just to get an idea of quadrants. It's kind of hard to see on this fabric. You know, I'm not gonna lie, when I was making these with this shimmery fabric, yes. I had to check my fold, so you might want to give it a press with the iron rather than just finger pressing it for a really sharp edge that you can feel and not just see. I folded my bag in half with the seam on one end, finger press the opposite edge, and then finger press, line up the seam with that fold to find how to fold it in half the other direction. So Then you want to match those folds. And then this is a step you might want to take a few minutes. Again, this is not a really high-tech bag. It's not a diaper bag or something that's going to be getting tons of use or something like that. But still, you might want to take some time. Try to line those folds. So I do opposite and opposite just to get my bearings. And as I said, it's a little hard to see, but I can kind of feel it. And I pinned a lot, I'll be honest.
Oh, absolutely, because you've got a curved edge there.
Because of the curved edge and the bias, and I just figure, it's not going to hurt anything. So you just so I pin it in the quadrants, and then I would do that on all the sides. And then I just sort of ease in that fullness. It doesn't have to be perfectly distributed,
but if you've done the math right, it's going to lay.
It should lay in pretty well. Yeah, it should lay in pretty well. And you could put in more pins if you wanted. I think my sample before this was like really pinned up. You would pin all the way around. We're not going to do that right now. And then you take it to your machine and do a little bit of curved piecing, but it's very easy and gentle. So let's show that.
Again, a 1/4 inch seam.
Yes, again, a 1/4 inch seam. Do this as quickly or as slowly as you need to. And just every now and then feel underneath it to make sure that the fabric on the bottom is easing in nicely and it's not getting too puckery. But you know what? Again, this is not a quilt top. If you get a couple of puckers, it's a bag bottom.
Yes, right. It'll be all right.
A couple of gathers are not going to kill you. So I really wouldn't worry about it.
You do have the curved piece on top, so that makes it easier to follow that curve.
Yes, and it makes it easier to ease in the fullness, and you just keep going. And that's how that works. As you can see, it's easy. And let's just get this out of the machine. And then you would just turn it right side out. And then you have this, and then cut a length of ribbon. I forget exactly how long I cut this. Just eyeball it. String one end onto a safety pin, work it through your channel, and bring it out. And you are good to go. And that's all there is to it. What I like to do is, so you can see here's where the channel opening is, actually. I bring the ribbon back around to the front so that I don't have the seam at the front of the quote-unquote gift, and just tie a ribbon. And these are 2 examples of variations on a theme. Here's a little bit, showing a little bit more variety of fabric.
Right.
Using a nice large scale print with a border at the bottom. This one's a little bit taller. You could, as we discussed, you could make this easily into a wine bottle bag.
Right.
Just measure around your bottle of wine and have a sip while you're at it. Why not? So it's really adaptable. People, I texted a photo of these samples to my friends, and they already put dibs on which one they want their Christmas presents in.
Fun.
So people are impressed, and it just gives a nice extra little touch to your gift that was probably picked out with care anyway, but why not put it in something even that much more special?
Absolutely.
So that's it.
Super. Well, thank you for joining us and for sharing your wonderful idea.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us. Come back and see us again next time.
Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.